We got another heater for you guys this week. Tom Bailey, Brett LaSala, Doug Cook, Lyle Barnett, and Top Fuel World Champion Antron Brown all going to join us right here today on the Wes Buck Show. Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered, this is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport, drag racing. Prove me wrong, I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. Hope you're doing well out there. We got a hell of a show for you guys today, and we're not gonna waste a lot of time. There's a ton of stuff to cover, so many things happening in the sport of drag racing. We're fresh off the NHRA finals, which was a wild and woolly scene out there in Pomona, California. We're, of course, going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, we're going to dive into a wide-ranging conversation on a whole slew of our experiences at this past weekend's Black Rifle Coffee Company 2.4 Hours of LeMullets down at the house that Cletus McFarland built, the Freedom Factory. Incredible weekend. Let me not waste any more time. Of course, I got my boy here, JT Hudson, but I'm also joined today by Lyle Barnett, Doug Cook, Brett LaSala, and the sick one himself, Tom Bailey. What's up, guys?
What's up?
Hey,
this is a hell of a crew on here. I think this might be one of the biggest shows.
Trouble.
This
is pure
how long
trouble.
Has it been since we've had 5-6 people on here? It's been a hot minute, man. What a
Are
deal.
we sure that's a good idea?
Questionable, possibly questionable, but hey,
No.
I kind of want to just go around the room because I don't know about you guys, and I'll be brief, but I do have to just share my thoughts on this whole deal. Kind of going into the 2.4 Hours of LeMullets, being a drag race guy, and honestly, I don't know the last time I went to a circle track or roundy round stock car thing. I used to go to US 36 Raceway in Osborne, Missouri, to the dirt oval there every once in a while, maybe once a year or something like that for some sprint 410 sprints or something like that, but completely out of my wheelhouse. But upon arrival and seeing the production that this entire event was, like I left inspired as much as anything, because I just felt like it was an incredible show, and it was a fantastic job done for the fans. Like, they had a hell of a crowd down there, and like table all the racing, table whatever competition existed, blah, blah, blah. The effort that was made to entertain these guys and gals from a multitude of different angles. And I mean, it's simple stuff, right? Clean bathrooms, good food. I mean, some of those things we kind of take for granted, but from the pyro, the skydivers, the way they wove in the music and the patriotic stuff, and just the live stream, everything they did down there, I thought was an absolute home run. And the racing, I guess, was, it didn't fare so well for old Vic Alvarez and I, but we hung in there for a minute. We hung in there for a while, but it was a ton of fun, and probably the most time that I've spent inside the racing vehicle, even though it was a Crown Vic. I mean, I was in that thing for 45 minutes, and I knew it when I got out of it in that Stroud Safety 20-layer fire suit I was wearing. Lyle, you were giving me some shit for that.
Marshmallow Man.
The session might have went for 45 minutes, but you were not in the car for 45 minutes.
Yeah, true.
Oh,
True. Damn near 44 minutes and 40 seconds, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he's like,
I don't know. It seems like multiple laps where I saw that car just sitting over there.
No, well, only one. I went out. I remember we watched, my wife and I watched the live stream back, trying to get my son to watch it with us the other night, and we were way more proud. He was like, "Yeah, this is cool, Dad." You know, I'm like, well, look, there I am saving it, coming out of turn 2. You know, right? He's like, yeah, whatever. But then I was listening to the play-by-play, and they're like, okay, we're down to the last 20 seconds, and that's right when I smacked a tractor tire wide open and ripped the whole front end off that Crown Vic, and it was like, oh man, what a deal, what a deal. But I think we held our own. Lyle, I don't remember what exactly happened with you guys.
Oh.
You know?
Lyle, what did happen to you?
all right.
That's what the world wants to know, because
I'm
I
on
piled that unit up.
for just a minute. I'm gonna throw it to Brett. He drove the first session. So Brett, go ahead, explain yourself.
Well, I did see a highlight though that said drag racers can't turn, and it just shows
Well,
the video of you driving straight across.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, Brett, what you ran the first? We were banging doors for quite a while there.
My
We were
internet's
welded together at
catching
one
up right
point.
now.
You there?
Yeah.
Your
He's
internet's
behind.
catching up?
Yeah, he's behind.
Okay, hold on. Lyle, you may have to explain it.
I'm buffering. You're
Oh, there we go.
catching up.
Give him a second. Lyle, tell us what happened. Doug and I are
Well,
dying to know, as well as
so-
the rest of the
Yeah,
drag
as,
racing
as
world.
like the car owner, I was just like,
car
what do we
owner.
gotta do
The
here?
car owner.
The car owner.
Well,
Yeah,
you're-
that was my car. I let you guys drive it.
The mistake was made when you asked me to drive it in the first place. So we're going to start there. Second, so Brett drove first in the just god awful kidney bean down there. Brett had some contact with one of the large tractor tires, and we saw it happen. He booted one out into the racetrack, but he kept going. And I assumed everything was good. Well, I'm coming out onto the track to make the driver swap. And he's like, man, the tie rod's pretty bent. I'm like, oh, great. And I'm like, well, like, does it still drive good? And he's like, no,
Nah.
it absolutely does not. Even better. So I guess one of Cletus's guys, Zach, I think, heard us talking about it. He's like, oh, I can fix it. So he goes running to the crash cart down there, grabs a couple wrenches, is laying under the car, and apparently pulled the tie rod in like 2 inches and trued the right front up. And he's like, oh, man, it's going to be good. And I'm like, oh, perfect. So first lap, it's got this like really hard spot in the steering wheel, like won't go any farther. Well, then all of a sudden it would break away and the car would just keep going straight. And I'm like, man, this is not going to end well. So the lap before I piled it into the K-rail, it was in the hard spot. I was coming through turn 2, fixing to enter the kid, broke away, and I just piled it straight into the tractor tires. So I back out, get back going again. You know, obviously had to grab a hold of that nitrous button to get back up to speed. I've just got the nitrous button held down, driving through the rest of it. I come back around for the next lap, get into the kidney. I'm like, all right, good. It's got a hard spot to the right. I'm wide open throttle, and it breaks away, and that thing is headed straight for the K-rail, and I never let up. Just bam!
Well, hey, man, a valiant effort. I hit the nitrous once on one of the restarts, and all I could really hear was the nozzle spraying. Like, it was like,
They just get louder. Yeah,
you know, and it's
they
like,
go
okay, we
faster.
got a little bit of a sound effect here, but I don't know that it made any measurable difference performance-wise. Bailey, what you guys hung in there? Steve took it to the bitter end. I thought you definitely held it down for all of us drag racers. Had you done that before?
Yeah, we've done it a few times. So
Okay.
It's always a good time. And like, and I mean, our strategy literally was my job was I was going to stay on the lead lap without getting lapped, and then just hang back and let the crashes happen and let attrition take its toll on everything. And did good. Handed it to Steve, and he was able to take it down to. We either finished, we still don't know, either 6th, 7th, or 8th, because the wreck we were in took out 3 cars and only 5 cars finished. So we were somewhere 6, 7, or 8, and we were picked to be 14. So we'll take it. So.
Yeah, what do you do, man? I mean, it was at the end of the day, it was a lot of fun. And for me, it was another reminder that like the cars themselves, like we're all car guys, right? And we like nice cars. And, you know, you guys are all known for having really nice cars and cars that stand out and kind of tell a story on their own. Like Doug, your Nova, you know, all the different sick Camaros that we've seen over the years from Tom. But for me, I thought it was cool that the cast of characters was really the focal point of the effort. And like I post it on social all the time, I say it all the time, but I truly believe that the cars are not the stars. They're a great co-star. They're a great supporting cast, but it's about the men and women behind the wheel. And it's about that human interest aspect of this. And to see all those different people, Travis Pastrana, Greg Biffle, you know, Bucky Lassick. I mean, I think Lyle and I were talking about it. If you played Tony Hawk skateboarding on PlayStation, you if you didn't pick Tony to be your guy, you picked Bucky Lassick. I mean, every time he's out here beating into, he hit me hard 2 or 3 times. Like
He was aggressive,
very aggressive. But he was also, wasn't he doing kickflips on the roof of it?
he was.
Yeah.
Right
So
before
I
he took
mean,
out for qualified.
I'm not totally surprised, but I thought it was a cool thing. And honestly, I think that's part of the magic of a lot of the stuff that's happening in drag racing right now is like, Tom, your events, I mean, it's kind of a similar song and dance where you've got these guys that are from the different walks of the racing life. Like maybe they race radial most of the time, or maybe they're a big tire guy, or they're a street car enthusiast, but you get this eclectic mix of people that typically only see one another at those events. Do you agree that like those personalities are a driving force behind these things?
Oh yeah, I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I think too, like, and we're fortunate that it doesn't. We're competitive, but friendly competitive. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk crap or whatever to the other guy, but we still want the best for that guy. We're still going to give that guy parts if he needs them, because we're still in the same boat of, call it the shared suffering, that we all have to make it from track to track. So we know how hard that is, and we're willing to do whatever to help people make that. And I mean, that's the cool part about it, the camaraderie, and like just that. And on the side of the road, I always say, it doesn't, like, you're broke down on the side of the road and there's 4 or 5 cars there with you. You don't know what times those cars run. You don't know what class. You don't know anything. Like, you guys are just the shared suffering. So like, it is just, hey, how can I help, or what can I do? And it doesn't matter who it is. And that's what's cool.
And honestly, I think a lot of that stuff, that's like the magic of this community. I was having that conversation with one of our Winter Series racers earlier this morning, and just talking about how he was talking, hey, I wish people could see more of that camaraderie. Like, it's fierce competition on the racetrack, but in the pits, he was referencing like the PDRA Bristol event where Johnny Camp had a rocker stand break or something. His car was already in the trailer, loaded up, ready to go home, and they unloaded it, took the rocker stands off his motor so they could put them on Johnny Camp's car. One of his competitors, you know what I mean, with a championship on the line and points up for grabs, went and unloaded his car so he could help out one of his friend. And that's just, that stuff happens every weekend at the drag strip, and sometimes along the road between racetracks. So it's like
World Series of Pro Mod. I think World Series of Pro Mod was a good, let the fans see that happen actually on the track. You know, you don't see that a lot, but yeah, they're going down for $100,000 to run, and oh, we're gonna wait. And I mean, the spectators were like, "What?" I mean, take the light, take the money, you know. But it showed everybody else, you know, how this community works. Like,
and that's what I think
like
makes it so special.
Yeah, I feel like just across racing, I don't remember it being like that in previous years. I felt like everybody's locked in their little way of life, you know, pro stock, pro mod, whatever. Now just crossover everywhere. And
I agree.
It's bringing so many personalities and just so much life into things.
Well, it's like the walls are coming down, you know, like some of these walls that have existed. And I think there's been like a lot of people, Lyle, I think you're one of those guys that have bounced around to so many different scenes that you've kind of brought some of that energy with you. And Stevie Jackson's another great example of somebody who's, you know, was a huge name in the outlaw world, gets into PDRA, ADRL, Pro Nitrous, Pro Boost, whatnot, and then dives into NHRA Pro Mod. And I think he like knocked some walls down with him on the way into NHRA. All these people that had kind of turned their nose up or thought that wasn't for them, all of a sudden they're tuning in because one of their boys is in there. And the more of that happens, the better. I mean, I think we're seeing it across the board. To your point, Doug, it's like everywhere I look right now, it's a very it's always been eclectic in drag racing, don't get me wrong, but you are seeing those walls coming down and people bouncing around from kind of pond to pond. More so, it's like the proverbial high school hallway, I always say, drag racing, the big tire guys, the drag week guys, the, you know, the nostalgia guys, the radial tire guys, the prep and no prep guys, etc. But we're kind of starting to see this coming together. And that's honestly really always been our goal here at Drag Illustrated. I mean, for the last 20 years, it's been about being a galvanizing force. Like when we started the magazine, I mean, I remember growing up and my dad, like, we'd pick up a copy of National Dragster and we were never in that group. You know what I mean? And he would buy ads. He would literally buy a classified ad in the back of National Dragster, basically so he could have it on the shop counter and show people that his car was in there, you know, no intention of selling it, but he wanted to have his car in that magazine. And I think today we're kind of at a time where, you know, there are places where everybody's guilty by association. You know what I mean? It's not, you don't got to run nitro to get any ink. You don't have to run. I mean, look at what Tom and you guys have created. I mean, you've created a lot of household names in this space. I mean, Brett LaSala on here, we hopefully will get him back. He's having some technical issues, but you've turned a lot of these guys into like well-known names that can show up at an NHRA race, show up at a PDRA race and be welcomed in with open arms because there's a lot of respect there. I mean, do you sense that as well, Tom?
Yeah, and I think it's cool because I mean, Brett has a huge resume or whatever that existed way before he participated in our events, but it's kind of like our events with the media coverage that we provide and that happens with that, like got him a lot of attention, that well-deserved attention that he already had earned that attention. He just wasn't getting it because unless that's us or it's you, like, I mean, there's no other publications out there that, I mean, I was talking about the other day and it's like, literally you have a magazine, we have a magazine. I think that's it. The rest of it's just shit that it's crap anymore, and nobody wants to be part of it. And I mean, it's paid spots, like, and literally we're putting stuff in there that we think is cool, and not because it's paid for by an advertiser, just because it's cool. And I think, to go back to what you were saying too, like the shit talking, like, I mean, what's cool on the other side too is, like, Lyle and Stevie are great ones, and you can see that people at the upper echelon or whatever, like, are friends, but they're also giving people shit, like, and that's cool, and that brings the personalities that you're talking about into it, because you can see Lyle and Stevie's personalities when they're talking shit to people, and it's friendly shit. It's not like they're not getting in a fight or anything like that. It's just shit talking.
We will.
But we will. Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
it'd be good for ratings if you did. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you about that.
I mean, I just think that 100%, man. And it does seem like, as good natured as it is, we're seeing more and more people put themselves out there. I mean, God knows Doug is going to let us know what he thinks about everything every day, from dog food to private equity and everything in between. But I honestly think, Doug, you're kind of like, you're doing the Lord's work by putting yourself out there like
My
that.
wife doesn't want you to say that, but
I mean, it's true, man. I mean, I actually started, I would see you like post these like kind of statements, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna start doing the same thing. Like, we need to own it a little, because I was actually watching some. Have you guys seen this dude Adam Ray who impersonates Dr. Phil?
oh yeah.
The comedian.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. My God. Well, he's got a Netflix special now, and I watched it last night, and he actually had the real Dr. Phil McGraw on there, and it was like a surprise thing. It was hilarious, but he was asking Dr. Phil if you script any of the things that you say during your show, and he's like, nah, I just pretty much hear what they say. I listen, and then I respond and say whatever I'm going to say. And he's like, well, you don't feel any like pressure to say the right thing or to say the thing that you're supposed to say. And he's like, nah, I figure I'm going to piss off somebody regardless, so I might as well say what I think. And it's true, because there's so many of us, myself included. I mean, I'm having to own this myself right now, that you kind of keep your mouth shut and you don't say anything, and you still manage to piss somebody off.
Yeah.
You still manage to make somebody happy or unhappy. So you might as well just own it. You know what I mean? Lean into it and live with the consequences, right? Lyle, you've gotten really good about putting yourself out there as well. Is that like a learned process? It seems to come pretty naturally to Dougie here.
Yeah, I mean, again, my wife's not proud of it either, and it's once a week or so that I get a text from you should take that down. You're gonna.
Oh yeah.
Same.
I don't remember you have a family. Like, I'm like, babe, they're not gonna come shoot the door down. I mean, well, they might, but but Doug made a post a while back, and I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was in a roundabout way that people, influential people in our space, need to be more vocal about the things that whether they believe in the right or wrong thing, but we need to start talking about things that nobody else wants to talk about. And for us to be silenced by big corporate sponsors, I mean, I'm not going to call them by name, but I know of several that won't come on, the podcast that I'm a part of, the Shake and Bake Show, strictly because they've been told by their corporate sponsor that it's just, they shouldn't do that. And that's a roundabout way to say that we would cancel your sponsorship if you did so. And it sucks that that's the way it is, because they have the biggest voice in our industry, is the people that have the hundreds of thousands of followers on their social media. But to kind of go back a little bit to you guys' point, I think that now more than ever, it is so important for us as a group to remember that we're in the entertainment business, and like, I'm in the drag racing business, but only it's because we are entertainers and people come to the racetrack to watch us do what we do. And it's the only reason we get to do it, right? Like, if nobody showed up, if not a single soul walked through the gate at Bradenton Motorsports Park for the Snowbirds, you'd probably reconsider having it again next year, right? Like, we're dependent on that, and now more so than ever, there's so many things to do, right? There's so much entertainment out there. And JT, you talked about last year in the finals of the World Series of Pro Mod, Derek Ward, who is a low budget racer. I'm not calling him poor, but he does it cheaper than most, and he could have very easily staged that thing, took home $100,000, and everybody been like, well, that kind of sucked, but it is what it is. But that's not what the fans came there to see. And the fans remember that. And for them to decide to go back to the trailers and let everybody fix their cars and go up there and have a real race, that's the best thing that could have happened for Derek Ward, because he won. The worst thing for Jim Halsey, because he had an opportunity to stage his car too, and go take the money. But, now more so than ever, again, like, there's so much to do, between Top Golf, which I'm sure JT like. There's all these things that people could be doing, but the fact that they choose to come to the racetrack and watch us do it is our job to put on a show.
Well,
And
I
that
couldn't
is
agree
so important today. And us as racers, we have to remember that. Like, I'm there. I'm the most competitive person you'll ever meet, whether it's cornhole. JT whipped my ass in Golden Tee at Linkster.
I was
Yes,
just
he did.
hoping
I
that you were
witnessed
better
it.
at Top Golf than you were at Golden Tee.
JT
Shut
is
up.
a literal pro.
Yeah, I mean, he had all these trick shots and shit like that. We're gonna have to do some kind of handicap next time. But
Lyle, to your point, like that's from the outside, because I study all these races, like which ones I want to be a part of, which ones I want to support, and it's like the good races, the Winter Series, Ducks races, the good no preps. The only difference between them and the races that suck oftentimes are the personalities. Like if there's no personality, nobody's showing up to watch the drama, at least in my opinion. Like as good as a racing can be, the personalities and all of that goes with it is what makes people show up. I mean, like back in John Force's heyday, that guy spoke his mind at the big end. And that's why he's a legend, And
I
Warren
honestly,
Johnson, same deal,
I use him as an example all the time because I think that he may not be as big of a star without the 16 world championships, but I'd argue he probably would be because it was never winning was a part of it, but it was almost kind of happening in the background. Like he was this verbose guy that was wild and crazy and shit's always blowing up and he's doing these huge burnouts. And it felt like he was in on the secret way before anybody else, because I've had some this is a fun thing to talk about because I had a conversation a long time ago and it was on this very podcast with Don Garlitz, Big Daddy Don Garlitz. And he was telling a story about the falling out that he had with Wally Parks, because there was this real clash of belief systems that was happening there early in the NHRA's heyday, where it was like the Big Daddy recognized that these individual personalities could carry the sport forward, but the NHRA didn't want one person or one star to be bigger than the NHRA's brand. So they fought it tooth and nail. And you don't really have to look much further than, nobody's going to an NFL game wearing NFL gear. They're wearing their players' gear, their team's gear. And I think that I use the NBA analogy all the time. Like, what did Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson do for the NBA? They transcended basketball. It was way bigger than that. And I think the NBA benefited greatly from it. And I think that's happening in our sport right now, where these individual brands are blowing up. All these guys and gals that have their own audiences, their own followings that are pretty diverse. I mean, I think that there's a lot of these people that follow different people, I don't know that they're dyed-in-the-wool drag racing people, but they fell in love with a certain personality, and that has gotten them more and more and more invested in drag racing. And the more we can do that, the more we can have this people with star powers. I mean, I'm actually contending with some of that right now with the Winter Series. I mean, for me, what I think I'm most excited about is we're going to have I was hitting Tom up. I was like, dude, how quick can your car go in the 8th mile? Because all we're missing is Tom Bailey in the Drag Illustrated Winter Series, because you're going to have every big name from the door slammer world. You're going to have a slew of these no prep king stars. You're going to have a bunch of NHRA names. I mean, you're going to see Antron Brown racing Jason Scruggs. You know what I mean? Jim Halsey racing Lyle Barnett, whose paths typically do not cross, right? Racing against Robin Roberts or Jim Howe, some of these guys that typically, and there's a lot of hubbub around that. Like, can those guys hang in major league drag racing? I think this stuff it's important to get all the stars in one place at one time, which we're seeing happen more and more and more in this sport.
Those guys have put themselves out there. The no prep guys on TV weekly. Lyle does a good job at it. Like I was going through some of our covers. Here's one of Lyle up on top of the. That's an awesome cover. But that's a shot though that a lot of guys probably wouldn't do. Right? He's got his Yingling beer in his hand. But really, and.
A lot of people, we've had multiple people. We've had professional photo shoots done.
You know what?
And the drivers not be cool with it.
Good idea.
Yeah.
He's still trying to get this damn sponsorship. Like, one of these days, he's got to give up on this Yingling sponsorship.
He needs to switch to Outlaw Beer. We got to get you switched to Outlaw Beer and just dive right in, man.
How long have I been trying for Coors Light sponsorship?
We tried
literally any beer, because if he endorses
Lyle's got the Bud Light sponsorship locked up. So I think that they've called him and just won't call him back, because they need someone right now like Lyle.
I can't let him drink alone, can I?
I like good beer, Tom.
they probably only sponsor electric vehicles.
I prefer a good
Exactly.
Brett,
So-
can you hear us?
But-
Are you like back live and in living
Yeah,
color?
we're back. I was
All
using
right.
the app, and the app was not.
But I
working,
guess-
so, on PC now.
I noticed he came back on earlier, right when Tom was stroking him, saying a lot of good stuff.
Well, that's what I was just
Well,
saying.
yeah,
is
we
I
can redo
kind of
that
want to
part.
Hey, I'm back.
rewind this because
we'll
one of the
rewind
things we were talking about, like while we're discussing the personalities and building these brands, Tom made an incredible point that like it's not like you were a relative unknown prior to the success you had as on Sick Week. I mean, you're a very accomplished racer, had been doing the deal for a long time, but all of a sudden you're racing in an area where it's a platform. It's a real platform with a lot of visibility. Like, how has that impacted you?
Greatly. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here today, right? Or working underneath Doug this past year. It's been amazing. Like, for me, I started from, like a lot of people have started, but from 16-year-old drag racing my Mustang and slowly modifying it, and up until the point now where I've done well enough and have got the car fast enough and been able to be a good racer and win a lot of different races to be at this level. And it just kind of worked up. It's always been my personal car, my investment, and my hobby, which now it's my life. It's every day.
It is crazy to see how quickly it becomes absolutely insane. Tom, like, do you look at, the drag and drive world, I feel it's been on fire for the last several years. And we've had you on here talking about, like, is there a threshold? But it seems like you guys can't help but sell out every one of these events. The energy and the participation is off the charts. What do you make of like the future of this? I mean, is it at this point kind of maintain these stable of events you have, or do you feel like this is something that continue to, can you do more of these things, or what's your kind of lay of the land, looking around at the drag and drive scene right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have the camaraderie part of it. The more that you build that part of it, the more that you build the culture, and that you have everybody enjoying themselves, having a good time, the more that people just want to do it. And we just finished up 666 not that long ago. And I mean, our whole thing, there's no live stream of it. The cars aren't as fast. We're just running 8th mile, and it's but we cruised Route 66. And so it was taking everybody on a family vacation. And that was the cool part about it. And that's what people enjoy about it is, hey, you can do it with your everyday driver, and it doesn't matter who you are. You can still go have a great time doing this. You don't have to, there's no point of entry other than having a car.
I think that's a big thing that has hindered drag racing in years past. Doug, do you agree? Like, just the cost of the barrier to entry. Like, I used to always my kid brother was always into dirt bikes and 4-wheelers and whatever. And I would give him shit about it must be nice because you can go to the Honda dealership and finance the baddest dirt bike known to man for $15 for the rest of your life. And you've got the same equipment as the pros have, whereas in drag racing, you don't have that opportunity. But now that we've got these drag and drive events, and especially the ones like Tom is putting on that are like this kind of rolling party that's fun to be a part of, win, lose, or draw, competitive or not. Do you think that that's like something that is a catalyst for the growth that we're seeing in the space right now?
Yeah, I think I think to your point, it is a party, so it's fun. It's not it's not this drudging through years and years of just trying to get to somewhere where you can race. You can start day one at your own speed. You can work your way up. It's interesting because you see guys that used to run LDR like Lamar Swindle. He's involved now and loving it. And he's like, man, I know how to make car go fast. So every year they're coming out with a new car. And again, to your point, the national dragster, in years past, you had to have a pro stock car to make it into publication. And now Tom's like, man, you got a really cool car, or you won. And now you're in print. So it's really exciting for people, and I think it offers them just this renewed sense of, hey, I can be part of something bigger than me and actually use my vehicle without having to roll up with a stacker or toter and all that stuff, and just do it at my own speed.
I think that's the most important part of it, is that you can kind of get in where you fit in, but you're still part of the club. Because that's what I think a lot of people are looking for and looking to achieve. Everybody wants to be part of something. I mean, that's why biker gangs exist. That's why there's political parties. That's all these things. You want to be part of something, right? You want to be part of a club. And that drag racing club at times can be pretty intimidating, and it can be hard to break into, especially if your friends have pro mods, or your friends have, L2 LDR cars, Pro 275 cars, and you're like, well, my gig, doesn't quite support, a twin turbo Hemi. but you can still go participate in these things and be guilty by association and be part of that community. Because again, going back to 2.4 hours of LeMullet, it's like what I saw above all else was a whole lot of people having a hell of a good time. Like
Exactly.
people were having fun. And those are some of the like wisest words I think I've ever heard is from Sporty Bandamere. I'm a big believer in the Bandamere family, and I'm really hoping that they're able to figure out whatever comes next for them as this kind of chapter of Bandamere Speedway closes out there on Thunder Mountain. But he told me one time, he goes, I measure all of these events by one thing. I'm like, what's that? He's like, whether or not people had fun. He goes, that's what I ask everybody when they leave. It's like, did you have fun? You know, and if you can ensure someone's going to have fun, even if they D&Q or even if they go out in round one, if they had a good time, they'll come back. And that is such an important thing that I think, especially at the highest levels of our sport, oftentimes gets glossed over. Like we've become a little desensitized to, you know, the effort that goes into this stuff, the shared suffering Tom's talking about. Like, hey man, a lot of these guys and gals like all but crawled across broken glass to get here, you know, and now that they're here, they need to be treated well and they need to have a hell of a good time.
And to have fun, the first step is to be able to be there, you know, like, I'm friends with Justin Martin. I've been racing with him in his LDR program for 5 years or 6 years, 7 years. But even like he's taken a lifetime to build that whole deal. You know, you can't, most of us can't just like buy it all today and go racing tomorrow. So sick week or race week, all that stuff. Like you can just park next to Brett in the pits and talk to Brett, probably learn some stuff along the way. Like people come up to me and Brett and we're like, hey, what should I do? And we give them little tidbits of information and they're like, man, I just ran the best ever. You can't do that at a pro mod race. Like there's a few guys like growing up. I remember Larry Morgan invited me into his pro stock pit and it was the coolest thing that ever happened to me. And, but like typically they're walled off. It doesn't feel opening. You know, you can't go back, learn, see all that stuff. So it takes down a lot of barriers to entry, and not that that's the end of the road for a racer, but it's definitely a good entry point. So.
No, there no doubt. Real quick, I want to dive into kind of change gears here. I see in the comments here, breaking news: Stevie Fast just went 356 or 346 at 215 in testing. Is that confirmed, Lyle, Doug?
I hadn't heard that.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I haven't heard it.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it does.
They're down in Brazil, I think. So.
Oh, okay. Well, so that's a good segue though, because I would like to just talk about how crazy fast these cars have gotten at every level, because that's something that I think everybody here can kind of comment on and provide a little bit of perspective on. Because like this past weekend, we saw Austin Prock go 341.68 miles per hour in a nitro funny car, and massively impressive, incredible. Another barrier broken, perhaps the last barrier we'll see broken in that space. But if you go all the way down to street strip racing, you know, street car takeover and some of these events, cars have gotten crazy fast. I mean, Brett, look at your car. Tom, I mean, we got 5-second cars that are being driven 1,200 miles. Like, can you just, Brett, I'll start with you. Like, thinking about 3-second, 8th-mile drag and drive cars on a small tire, like, did you ever anticipate, and like what do you point to? Is it just the new standards that exist and the quality control and the parts, the billet this, the billet that, everything getting better, technology? I mean, because it seems insane to me.
It is insane, and it's all of the things you mentioned. It's technology's one thing, and you know, to be able to harness the horsepower, but then the technology and the engine development, like you said, like I would have never dreamed. Like, you know, we went 236 miles an hour to the quarter in my car, 190 to the eighth, and it's a production-based aluminum cast engine. Like the motor that would have came in the car, obviously it has work done to it, but to make that much power and go that fast, it's almost hard to believe. And we're the ones doing it. Like,
it's more than hard to believe. I mean, are you ever like, Tom, you've been on the cutting edge of these performance milestones, especially in the drag and drive world. What do you make of how far this has gone? Because I'm sure, especially in your case, there's perhaps like a point of no return or a point of where it's gone too far. But I mean, what do you make of it? I mean, are we going to see more and more of these low 6-second or 5-second players in unlimited drag and drive competition?
Oh yeah, I mean, Squeak coming up this year, and I know it's been talked about or whatever, like in the past, but there is legitimately going to be 6 5-second cars at Sick Week, like in capable cars that probably will run. Like this isn't going to be a case like there's only been one run in drag and drive or whatever that's been a 5, and I did that, the 599 or whatever, and that's 5 years ago. I mean, and getting back to that point, it's like I mean, I fucked around a lot or whatever and just waited for some people to come along to actually so that I could kick their ass. And finally, some people are coming along. Like Brett's finally stepped up, and some of these people are stepping up because I'm tired of fucking sitting here just waiting for everybody to get here. And so it's like, so hey, we got a fresh wrap going on the car. So like it's just getting ready. Like that's what we're down to. Our fine tuning is we're just going to change the wrap and make it look a little different or whatever. There's this green that I saw on this car at LeMullets, and that's what I'm doing my car in, is this green, because I think that it's going to be cool, and I think I'm going to call it Snot Rocket 5.0. Like, and it's just going to be cool. No,
It'll be fast.
No,
It'll be fast.
but the thing is, you have the complete opposite. Like I have a whole bunch of brute force that I mismanage, and everything goes wrong, and haphazardly I can go run fives. And then you have someone like Brett that like literally he is squeaking everything performance wise that can come out of what he's doing to go run a five. So like he's gonna be like as far like is pushing that thing almost as far as it can go so that he can run fives with it. And that's awesome from the technology side, because like that's the part that's amazing. Mine is just a haphazard pro mod with a license plate or whatever that I mean, we should be able to run fives no problem just based on screwing up. So like, I mean, and that's kind of the difference is where the technology, and that's where I see that like what I'm doing with 2.0 and everything like that is it in mine. And now granted, there's half a dozen cars that are coming along that are like 2.0, but to me, that's kind of dinosaur age to where Brett's on that cutting edge of like, how factory can I get it and still go fives? Like, and that's, so it's like you got two different things going on. And that's what's cool is like, literally he's pushing the limits of what, I mean, it's a pro mod or whatever that he has, but like, I mean, it's so.
We hear that a lot, right? Oh my God, Doug. I mean, what do
anything
you think?
that's faster than your car is a pro mod. Just FYI, if it's faster than your car, it's a pro mod.
It's a pro mod.
So like,
but then the drag and drive, the equalizer is the drive. Right. Like the 1 5-second pass doesn't do anything. You got to do 4 more passes within, like we drove the run hours on my car last year. We made 10 passes, all 630s and faster, and drove the car for 36 hours. We were driving the car on the street. So like it's an Ironman.
This is the data he has. I can't even tell. I'm like, I don't know. It's got 5,000-6,000 miles on it. I don't.
You got to make it past day 2.
I personally think Wes and Tom should converge and make $100,000 to win drag and drive.
Oh boy,
that's just my personal thing.
The only thing that
How
I'll
cool
tell you
would it
this,
be to see like Stevie come out and like
it would be, but the problem is, and I'm like, I take some responsibility for this because like I'm really proud of the big money we race for, but I can also see how it's a real fucking problem. Like where. I mean, people don't realize that we spend like $1 million to put on the World Series of Pro Mod. One event, one drag race, right? One event for a week in Florida. It costs Drag Illustrated about $1 million, right? So it's like, and that purse is a big part of it. And we obviously have racer entry fees and stuff that support those things, but it's just typically purse is about 1/3 of the event's cost. And I think part of the magic of what Tom has that I find like, if we're being candid, that I find myself like jealous of is that those guys, they're there for a fucking orange helmet. That's what they're there for. And I think that is, I'm like, again, I'm very proud of what I do, but I have an infinite amount of respect for these events that are people doing it for all the right reasons. I mean, and I've had this conversation with like a bunch of our racers, and I'm very proud. Like, I think we could put on the World Series of Pro Mod and pay 10 grand to win and have the same level of participation. But what I'm trying to do, like, I know that if I'm ever going to get a Monster energy drink, if I'm ever going to get Coca-Cola, if I'm ever going to get on Fox or get Netflix to broadcast, I mean, the World Series of Pro Mod would have been a hell of a lot better show than the Mike Tyson, Logan Paul fight or Jake Paul fight. Promise you. If I'm ever going to do that, you kind of got to have all the bells and whistles, right? And one thing that we've found in like since 2017 back in Denver with the first World Series of Pro Mod, where back then I was begging people to come, like quite literally begging people to come. And there was no entry fee. You could test all week and it was 100 grand to win. And I was still begging people to come and having people no show. Like, there's a couple of guys that still haven't told me they're not going to make it. I mean, it's not looking good, but the week before the race, I had to, make sure they had a pit spot, and they never told me they weren't going to come. But anyways, my point is that I do think it's like a delicate dance. Like we found that those big numbers help us with the local media. Like it helps you get the local ESPN affiliate on board. It helps you get the local Fox Sports guys to come out. It helps you get the local newspapers to come out. And it's a big part of the marketing ploy. And I'm not done yet. Like if everything goes the way I intend it to go this winter, next year, we're going to take it to a whole new level as far as purse money is concerned. However, I do think that you kind of got to, that deal can't, I don't know that we could do 20 of those. You know what I mean? I think it's got to be a special couple times a year type of deal, because I also feel like my overall goal, and Doug, I know you and I line up on this 100%, everybody on here, but like we want to see the sport continue to thrive. And I don't want every promoter to feel the pressure of paying some crazy amount of money in order to quote unquote have a big race.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
You hate to go backwards too.
You know?
Yeah. You can't go backwards. But I mean, I do think I look at some of these events. I mean, Drag Week was like that for a long time when guys would all but sell their soul to get one of those guitars, you know, and be there at the end. And I think that those things are magic. I actually was talking to Jimmy Dale, my good buddy Jimmy Dale, that puts on the little gangster shootouts, no prep, small tire stuff down here in Texas. And he was talking about, you know, paying this money and getting bigger money. I'm like, hey, man, be easy, because with that big money comes Lyle Barnett showing up. Comes Stevie Jackson showing up, you know, comes Antron Brown showing up. You know what I mean? And it's like, you've kind of got to manage it and make it sustainable over the course of time. It's
speaking of Antron Brown, he's in the green room right now. I'm gonna jump out of here and bring him on.
Oh, let's give it up. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2024 NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series World Champion in Top Fuel, the one, the only Antron Brown. Let's go.
Yeah.
AB, man. I got you in here with some hoodlums, brother.
This ain't hoodlums, man. This is like, let me tell you something. If I was going to a race, this is who I want on my side, Daddy.
We'll fix it or fight them. We'll fix it or fight them. One or the other, man.
Hey, tires on the Top Fuel anytime, man.
We need to all go. We should all volunteer and go crew and get in the way and cause a bunch of problems for Antron at one of the races early in the season when the championship's not on the line, because we would just be in the way at this point. These guys got a well-oiled machine. We were just talking about kind of the health and wellness of the sport, Antron, but while we've got you, I just want to obviously congratulate you. Everybody here has served the role of team owner, owned their own equipment, and went out and fought the good fight. And you did that, took over the team, bought it from Don Schumacher Racing. You're out here as one of few team owners and drivers, and you won a world championship. Could you just reflect on, like, I know it always means a lot to win a championship, to win in anything in drag racing means a lot, but to do it when you're the boss, I can't imagine how different that was for you.
Man, I tell you what, Wes, it was very, very special. And the way it was special is that it wasn't for me, it was for us. You know what I mean? When I did this deal with AB Motorsports, you know what I mean? It's all of us together, you know? So basically what we did was, when we was at DSR, I had this vision to say, man, what could we do if we had control of doing what we wanted to do? You know what I mean? Like, put all the right people in the right places, let everybody make their decisions and move forward. And pick up on everybody's strengths. You know, it's not me. I am not a micromanager. I'm not a guy that comes in and say, hey, man, what you doing? You need to do this, do this, do this. No. And like, I want to bring the most talented people in. I go, all right, you got this, you got that. I got this, you got that, you got that. All right, let's convene, let's get together, and let's be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And the only thing I get to do is I get to pick on individuals and challenge them and get them uncomfortable, do something they've never done before, and open up some different deals. And that, I think that was the coolest part about this whole experience, is watching the growth of us. Like, we came out, we almost won a championship the first year because we were very competitive. But then the second year, like, we won some races and we didn't stick it in the countdown. Like, the countdown's kind of like going to the Olympics. You get what I mean? You work all these years, like the 14 races is the long year. Okay. You work all these years to get ready for this 1 6-race sprint, and you can't screw up. You know what I mean? And you screw up, I mean, you can have a couple flaws, but you got to stick the landing. And that's what happened for us this year. We started off really, really strong. We bobbled in the middle and maintained and stayed there, and then we lost first place, and then we really stuck the landing at Pomona. And And for us, man, I couldn't be more blessed and more proud to have all these people that's around me that we just never quit. We never stopped fighting, man. We never, and that's what made it happen. That's what makes me the proudest of this whole moment, is that that's been our whole life and my whole career. We always had to fight, man. It was never like, oh, this just happened. You know what I mean?
No one's coming to save us, right? I mean, it's like I tell my team all the time. It's like, hey, look, there's not going to be one magic thing that happens and everything gets easier, right? We're going to have to fight. It's always going to be a fight. And I'm curious, going into this race, I was talking to Brett Underwood, our VP of sales here this morning, and he was talking to Brian Karate, I think in the airport or something. And he said, we're not going to leave anything left. Like, we're burning it down. We're either going to win this championship or we're definitely going to go down swinging. The clutch performance that this weekend was, your performance as a driver, the performance of the car. I mean, that first round matchup against Justin Ashley, number 5 versus number 12. I'm sure that's not the way he wanted it to work out, as far as the qualifying matchups. And I know you guys are like quasi teammates and dear friends, but like, you talk about sticking the landing. I mean, it can all go awry in a moment's, in a split second. I mean, this kid looked like a lock to win his first world championship, and early Sunday morning, it's over.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the difference of 10,000ths. You know what I mean? And one thing is that Justin has made a name for himself because he's the kid's ice cold. He's smiling and nice. He gets in that car, but people don't realize how he is off the tree. Like, he's nasty, man. He doesn't care, and he's an athlete. But the one thing I think a lot of people forgot about is, like, you hear a lot of that talk, and they talk about Sean all the time, and Sean's a great leaver, a great driver. Doug Coletta is a great leaver. He could drive a race car, and they forget about him sometimes. I never forget about Dougie. I know how Dougie gets down. You know what I mean? And one thing for me is that's been my wheelhouse for years. That's what I focus on. That's what I practice on. And I've been a little bit all over the place. Not all over the place, but not in my realm where I should have been at for a lot of races this year, because I got so much other stuff going on where I finally got back into my real house and shut everything down. And I just became a racer for this last race, where I got to go back to AB of old, where I just didn't care. I just didn't give a, pretty much. And that's what happened. I went out there, didn't have no emotion, didn't get high, didn't get low, lined up, staged it, hit it. And that's where I should be at all the time. You know what I mean? So I was 43 to his 45, and we outran him by a little bit, and that was enough to sneak the win off by 10 thou. And that right there is the exact same thing what happened in Dallas. That could have went the same way in Dallas. He did that to us in Dallas. We qualified good. He didn't qualify good. Took us out first round and flip-flopped the whole championship the way we just did in the final. So it was just like roles reversal. So
that's a crazy deal, man. Before you jumped on, Antron, we were talking about just like kind of the health and wellness of our sport as a whole. And I got to interject here real quickly, like how proud I am of this moment right here and now, because in years past, you're not going to see in a situation where Lyle Barnett, a pro mod door slammer guy, Doug Cook, an industry member, a small tire guy, kind of that's what he's best known for, I would say. Tom Bailey, a drag and drive big tire legend. Brett LaSala, small tire legend. I mean, to see this in an NHRA Top Fuel world champion, like, I'm really proud. And we were talking about that at the beginning of the show, is that, like, I always say, if you've pulled in and lit that bottom bulb, you're my kind of guy. Like, I don't care what it was in, a junior dragster, a jet car, somewhere in between. You're my kind of guy. Looking at Pomona, we had a hell of a crowd out there. I saw Brian Loans say that it was the greatest drag race that he'd ever seen. What do you make of just like the whole scene right now? And we'll kind of go around the room here, just as far as like our industry and where this sport is at right now.
I mean, drag racing as a whole right now, I think it's blowing up, brother. It is blowing up. And I think I'm really intrigued because I'm a big fan of the small tire racing. Always have been, loved it. Like big power, small radial tires, and getting out there, mixing up, getting mean with it, and just how competitive it's got. I remember when I was a kid, I used to see Lynch out there going crazy, coming to Englishtown. You get what I mean? Coming to Englishtown. I never forget, I'm like, I said, that cat is flying. And now to see where it's at now on a whole different spectrum. I mean, you got small tire cars going to the 8th mile as quick as an alcohol funny car. You get what I mean? Like you think about it, how real it is. And pro mods is just on a different planet. You know what I mean? Like there's so much more. Like, just think about this. I race Top Fuel and I watch these other classes and I'm a big kid fan of it. You get what I mean? And that's how interesting it is. And then I just love racing. I don't care what it is. Brother, people don't show it on Instagram. They haven't showed it. But I got in a junior dragster and I was racing other parents at the junior dragster racing the junior dragster. I don't care what it is. You want to race? We're going to race, baby. You know what I mean? And that's how I am. I love it by the pound. If it's a competition, it's going to be a competition. If you want to, hey, you know when it rained out, I'm in the pit area flipping quarters with my crew members to see who's going.
Oh shit, we lost him. He locked up. No. I guarantee you he got a phone call. Brett, I'm curious, like, what's your take on that? Like, getting more and more deeper involved in the industry and kind of turning your hobby into a profession. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, first and foremost, like, I don't know if you think it's as cool as I do, just being on here with the reigning NHRA Top Fuel Champion. But like, what do you make of this whole scene and being a part of this community like you are?
It's amazing. Like you said, the opportunity to be on here with the, NHRA champion, and the fact that, he's watching some of the racing that, we're doing, or pro mod racing or small tire racing, that's, I think that we're all, like you said, in it for the same reason, for the racing, and we can appreciate what the other people are doing. And the sport is really in a good spot.
Do you feel those walls coming down as well, Tom? I mean, the sick week, you've been a part of the NHRA national event in Chicago the last couple of years. It feels like they have become much more excited about what you guys do and these other brands of drag racing, which is something I give the NHRA a lot of kudos for, is kind of, opening their eyes and looking beyond the bounds of just what they do and recognizing there's a lot of stuff with momentum right now. I mean, what do you make of those walls coming down?
Yeah, no, I just think it's amazing for the sport, and and the more people that get involved in it, and the others that, like, with everything going on, like, I mean, there are so many different events that happen, like, and when you talked about personalities and how much more important it is, the personalities of the people, that actually how they do in the lanes, because people don't know who won the race 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Like, that's all long gone, but they can remember a pit interview, or they can remember Lyle giving Stevie shit. Like, they can remember all those things. It's as simple as, like, when we were getting ready for Drag Week this year with 2.0 and then said wasn't going to make it. They're like, well, when are you ever going to bring that car out again? It hasn't been out for years. I'm like, it won Drag Week last year, right? Like, the last event that happened, and I've won it the last 3 times in a row. Oh, that's how short-lived all of that is. They can remember, and they can remember all your screw-ups too, way better than all your wins. I got no problem with that, because we screw up way more than we win. So, like, and that's the great part about it, is if you take it all too serious, then it's horrible, and you'll be a horrible individual. You gotta roll with the punches, and, like, hey, once you're done and you lost, you know what? You're not as happy as if you won, but you know what? You're fine. It's on to the next thing, on to the next challenge, and how do I do better next time? And that's what you take. You can't have the disgruntled losers and I think that's the part that there's so much more of now, because there's a race next week. So it's like, I may have lost today, but now I'm getting ready for next week, to where if there wasn't a race for 6 months, you might be a lot more pissed off, because you got to wait 6 months to race again. But shit, I mean, it's whatever, rinse and repeat. Like, hey, I screwed up, time to do it again. And I think that's what's bringing the fans out there, and that's what getting the people that want to go do it, because there's more things they can go do, and they can go hang out every weekend and have a good time, and maybe somewhere along the line they'll win, and you know what, that win will last them for the next 6 or 7 races of feeling good about themselves until something happens again. And that's what's awesome.
There's no doubt about it. Doug, what do you make of just this kind of cornucopia of personalities that we have on the screen right now, but kind of just what that means to the sport as a whole? I mean, you're driving the bus on a lot of this stuff, crossing over guys, supporting guys wherever they race. I mean, Stevie's a great example. If he's going to Ducks races, you're going to see motion on the side of that thing. If he's at the Winter Series, if he's at NHRA, what do you make of this kind of coming together? Because I really feel, I mean, not to turn this political, but I feel it in our country to some extent right now, where it's kind of like there's this Americana people are proud and people are excited and energy levels are high. And I think that's a product of some sort of unity that's happening, which typically follows a tragedy. And it feels like in this moment, for whatever reason, it's happening in drag racing.
Yeah, I mean, to tear a page out of your book, like the last, I feel like 6 months or a year, I've kind of got chills like about the whole industry. You know, for one, personally, just like this redneck from Iowa, 10 years ago, I started a business to be where I'm at now. It's really cool. But the stewards of the industry have flopped. Like, I'm so excited to see Antron win, but I'm even more excited to see that he has a team. You know, it's one thing to be a driver, but like now we have Top Fuel teams for the next generations. You know, people have taken the bull by the horns in a time when Motor Trend is canceling. We have you and we have Tom, just across the board, even Cletus picking up, you know, starting a live stream, having these events, like to see it all. Okay, we have a whole nother generation, because let's face it, like a lot of the players in the game 5-10 years ago were really old, and it took all of us in this room and many more to step up, and it just feels good to know that there's a big future and a bright future for all of it, honestly, from the bottom to the top.
Lyle, what do you make of, you mentioned something earlier that I thought was smart, and it honestly, going more political shit, I'm going to piss some people off, but like, look at the impact Joe Rogan had on the election this year, right? I mean, this is a dude with a podcast. Most of the time he's smoking pot or at least drinking whiskey while he's interviewing these people, and yet the impact was immeasurable. But it was a personal brand. It wasn't a mainstream news outlet. It wasn't a mainstream media company. It was a real kind of targeted dude that speaks to a really targeted, specific audience. I mean, look at what you guys have built with Stevie and Courtney with the Shake and Bake show. I mean, that deal is a pillar here in our space now.
Yep. Antron, first of all, congratulations, man. We've been buddies for a couple years, and I was super happy and proud of you for what you guys did this past weekend, man. It was awesome to see. But I want to follow that by saying you got about 2 weeks and you got action in Bradenton. If you want some three bulbs of the race, baby, stage that bitch up and let's fucking rip it.
I'm ready.
But
I'm ready.
I just need to get that out of the way. I need to get closer to the mic, get a little bass in there. Nah, you know, Wes, you know, the Shake and Bake deal was something really inspired by the fans, right? You know, you guys need a podcast. You guys need a podcast. And it was just me and Stevie, you know, and we're like, God, man, I guess we'll do it. You know, we have Courtney on one show, and now here we are a little over a year later and 46 or 7 shows in, and it still, you know, is going strong and doing well. But, you know, I think that your show, what Tom does, our show, shows that it goes farther than just what happens on Saturdays and Sundays. You know, it used to be win on Sunday, sell on Monday, and I think that's kind of gotten away from us a little bit, but it takes us talking about it throughout the week. Like, this is Wednesday afternoon, 4:00 here in God's country, and you know, and we're talking about it, right? You know, we don't have to wait until Saturday and for some flyer or some newspaper article to come out. Like, people are talking about it midweek, and that's what it takes. You know, is constantly keeping it in front of people's faces on these things right here. You know, we log into Facebook every single day, and back to what I said earlier, you know, there's so much to do, right? There's so many things that can capture your attention. There's video games and what we got going on our phones and all these things. And for us to constantly keep just putting it out there and pounding it in the ground, that's what it takes, you know, and it's, you carry a lot of the weight on your shoulders, Wes. And I know you may realize that and you may not, but what you've done with Drag Illustrated and what you're doing with the Winter Series goes much farther than just those 3 races at Bradenton, right? Like, you've got Antron Brown, who just came off the Top Fuel World Championship, who has probably already immediately shifted his focus, right? Like, winning the championship was unbelievable. And I'm sure you're still celebrating, Antron, but the next thing on your radar is just hoping you don't line up beside me down there. But is getting into Pro Mod, you know, and running the Winter Series, right? You know, and I know you're probably just as excited for that as you were when you rolled into the gates at Pomona. And there's something to be said about that, Wes, you know, and I hope that I can continue to support and be a part of what you've got going on down there, as long as somebody will give me a ride, because God knows I can't afford to own one myself. But as long as some dude like Tommy Humans will continue to give somebody like me the opportunity to do it, I'm going to be there. You know, I won't sell my wife or my kid, but I got a couple dogs. They're high dollar now, but
they're for sale. Well, I appreciate it, man. And I want to shift to that. And Tom, is there, with the timeline of Sick Week, there's probably no way we could get your car to run Pro Mod, a week before? What's the dates for Sick Week?
Yeah, literally, I think that your race ends Sunday. Tech is Monday for.
You need to probably save your
Sick
parts.
Week in Georgia.
Maybe one of these days we will get.
It's good
we'll
testing.
Get,
you should run it.
An outlaw pro.
Yeah. I got another problem. Lasts until day 2 when I start on day 1. If I start on day -2,
no bueno.
Some needs to be fresh, so Snot Rocket don't wear them out too bad.
Oh, jeez. Antron, what do you make
Snot
of this whole
Rocket
pro
is just
mod
gonna be
thing? You
licking
said something to me, and I don't want to obviously we're here to celebrate your NHRA Top Fuel World Championship, but I definitely want to talk about the Drag Illustrated Winter Series. And perhaps one of many things that I'm very proud of this whole deal is the fact that you reached out to me and said, hey man, I want to do this deal. I want to be a part of this. You said one time, what's happening in Pro Mod right now is something that you would have wished happened elsewhere 20, 30 years ago, as far as the momentum and energy and excitement that exists around this space. I mean, what do you make of diving into what no doubt will be shark-infested waters down in Bradenton, Florida?
Well, for one, Pro Mod, pound for pound, is no joke, brother. So that's what always intrigued me about Pro Mod. You got everybody on my team involved. Even my crew chief, Brian Karate, he's got a car, and he's bringing out a theme that's going to be a surprise theme when he gets there. And we're going to have Zach Zachman drive it, which is a kid that's a top dragster champion. He drives the wheels off a car, too. And he's bringing back a theme from back in the day. That's going to be pretty cool. And then I'm bringing a Lexus out down there. It's going to be an all-red Lexus with Manny Bajinga. And we got Petty behind the wheels that's going to be tuning it. So I'm super pumped where if you want to come somewhere, you got to show up where you have a chance to win. I ain't coming – let me tell you something. I do nothing in life to come out there to be out there. I want to come and I want to win and have a chance to win. So like Lyle was talking about, he don't want me to line up against him. Lyle, I'll line up against – big dogs every day, brother. That's what I do. I guess you didn't see it the last race, but that's
maybe you got caught up in the plane crash and didn't watch the rest.
We could talk, we could do it, and that's what I love about Pro Mod is because nobody in my race series wants to talk, and they talk, but they don't talk to me. You get what I mean? I don't know what I am. I was like, they don't want to talk a brother down. I was like,
I will in a heartbeat. Say it with my chest.
No, I mean, and I think that to be honest, I think it goes back to owning the shit. I really think that, Lyle's an exception because he's got Mr. Yeomans here, but there are, don't get me wrong, there are a handful of hired gun drivers that exist in Pro Mod, but the attitude is the drive it like you stole it, say it with your chest puffed out, because most of the guys and gals that drive this stuff own it. They hauled it to the track. They're not paid by Snickers to be in there driving it. Their job is there to win and do whatever it takes. And sometimes that starts before the race even happens with some chippiness or whatever, and getting some mind games going. And I think that's what our sport is. And I think that what the Winter Series will reflect is a real owning. It's an authentic happening. I think that's what it is. It's this is high level drag racing, but we're not getting too serious. We're not making it something we're not. I think drag racing has went through this ongoing identity crisis where we're always trying to be oh, NASCAR's doing this, so we need to do it. Oh, Formula One's doing this, so we need to do it. And the fact of the matter is that this is a sport that was built on the back of badasses and outlaws and do-it-yourselfers and grease monkeys. You know what I mean? Guys with a shop towel hanging out of their back pocket, right? And I think that owning that character that this community represents, we got to lean into it, not lean away from it, right? Be ourselves.
I think the coolest part about it is that you're able to be yourself. You get what I mean? It's a lot of people in our sport let the corporate deal get in the way where they worry about this, they worry about that, but they don't understand that that's why the corporate people want you, is because of your personality and who you are. I act. People, if that's why me and Lyle, we can cut up like this, is because the way you see me now is the way you see me no matter where I'm at. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Lyle. We cut up, we have fun, We keep our head down. And when we go to the starting line, don't let the smile, don't let the Coke and the smile fool you. Like, don't get that twisted. When I put the helmet on and my visor goes down, I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a girl. I don't care if you're a little kid. I don't care where you come from. I give nobody no false hope. If you're going to beat me, you're going to beat me. You ain't going to be like, oh, he let me win. I ain't letting nobody win. Even when I do those customer races, the only way I lose is because they give me a 4-cylinder Camry and they give the other person a 6-cylinder Camry. I'm watching have track until my car can't go no more. And I'm looking at what the window rolled down and said, what kind of shit is this?
I'm gonna beat you like you owe me money.
Like, hey, this is customer race, man. We gotta give them a chance to win. I said, no, you're giving them false hope. This ain't little league.
No, man.
Everybody don't get a trophy, baby.
Yeah, like, they're racing the champ. They should know they're gonna lose. Right?
Speaking of that, Wes, can we facilitate some grudge racing at the Motion Raceworks Snowbirds?
Yeah, let's do it, buddy.
Hey,
all right.
Absolutely.
Oh, I thought you were going to do it right now. Okay, well, we got one. I was like, shit, start naming names, Doug.
We got one.
Well, I mean, my car is going to be grudge racing, I'm sure. But.
Well, so I was going to save. So at the World Series the last couple of years, we introduced this cool thing on Friday night called Rivals Night, World Series of Pro Mod Rivals Night. And I'm really proud of it because I wanted to make sure that our Friday night show, like for the fan that could only come on Friday, I wanted them to feel like they were still going to see a standalone event happening. And I also know that like one of my jobs as a promoter is to like make the races that people want to see. A whole lot of fans go to the racetrack and they're like, you're crossing your fingers that it's going to be whatever, Sean or Steve Torrance versus Leah Pruitt because they got some history or whatever, right? They got some beef. You know, you're hoping for that matchup. You're hoping you're going to see Lyle Barnett and J.R. Gray meet somewhere in eliminations at the NHRA race. My thought was, why are we doing this? I literally asked our group, I'm like, why don't we just set these races up and lock them in stone so the fans, when they show up, they're going to get to see Jim Halsey run Tommy Franklin, or Tommy Franklin run Keith Haney, or Stevie Jackson race whomever, right? I mean, the matchups the fans want to see is, I think, what they deserve to see. So Rivals Night on Friday night will return at the 2025 run-in of the Drag Illustrated World Series. But I do think we may introduce like maybe a scaled down version of it at the Snowbird, at the Motion Raceworks Snowbird Outlaw Nationals and the U.S. Street Nationals presented by M&M Transmission. Perhaps we can do like a shorter fight card, because I think at some point in the future we will do events that are just that. That's kind of where I want to get to, where at some point we'll do an event and it's just like, hey, I'm having Tom Bailey come in to run Larry Larson, period. He ain't going to run nobody else. Those two guys are going to race. Those are the guys that everybody wants to see race. So let's just make that race happen, right? And I don't know. I think there's some magic to it personally. But yeah, we can, all you want to do, big dog. We can put a little on top of it.
Maybe they can be like you or Shake and Bake or something like that. Make like a call out night or something.
Oh, we should do a call out night. I kind of like that idea. I like it a lot, actually. Well, hey, Antron, I do want to touch on a couple of things here. And Tom, Brett, I'll cut you guys loose. Tom, will you give us the dates real quick for the upcoming running of Sick Week 2025? Just so everybody knows, you can log on to sickthemag.com, killer website. Shout out to Luke, everybody that's involved with Tom's team. You guys have really put together a world-class operation.
Yeah, January 27th to February 1st. So we're starting South Georgia. We're going South Georgia, Bradenton, Orlando, Gainesville, back to South Georgia. So.
Oh, man. We got to figure out. I'm going to have to ask the wife if I can just stay in Florida and go on Sick Week again. But Tom's going to pick on me if I do it in a Nissan Pathfinder again. So I've got to find some sort of hot rod car to do it in.
Dude, like, you are the only person, though. You are the only person that sustained a major injury without even being a participant in the event. Like,
well, and I didn't realize
your bicep out lifting a tire. Is that what happened?
I think I actually broke the rules too. Like, because I didn't realize. So what happened was we were in Valdosta, and Joe Barry needed some help. They were trying to get his car back to street trim to make the drive up to Ocala or to Garlitz's place. And I could tell they were trying, something was wrong with Dennis and Alex Taylor's car. So they were thrashing and they were kind of traveling together. And me, I'm like always looking for like something to do like that. Like, oh, can I work on the car? Okay, well, whatever. I'm in. So he said he needed some help. So I grabbed an impact wrench, jumped down, something I've done 100,000 times, buzzed the lug nuts off this thing, and I grabbed the bottom of the slick. And you know how you got to like rock it off the wheel studs and get it out from under the fender well? As soon as I made that first tug, I heard it sounded. Have you ever like drug a floor jack across a parking lot, like asphalt, like like that? I mean, like denim tearing. I heard this sound and I was like, what was that? And all of a sudden I felt faint and I looked at my arm and my bicep, which is normally here, was in my shoulder in a baseball. And I'm 1,000 miles from home, right? With 2 or 3 days to go. I couldn't even remember. And I remember I walked over to my Nissan Pathfinder, and our editor-in-chief, Nate Van Wagenen, was sitting in there finishing up something. And I sat down in the car and I said, Nate, I think I'm going to pass out, and I'm pretty sure I tore my bicep. And he's like, what? So he looks at it and he gets sick. He's like, oh God, what are we going to do? And so I got on Google, because that's what every, professional would do. I got on Google, and apparently there's a test you can do. It's called the hook test. You put your arm at 90 and you should be able to hook that tendon with your finger, right? Well, when I went to hook, there was nothing. I mean, nothing. And so then I typed in, what do you do about a torn bicep? And it said, get surgery immediately. And I'm like, oh shit, this is not good. So we went to the gas station, packed that bad boy in ice, and drove to Don Garlett's and hung out with everybody at the car show at Garlett's Museum in Florida. And I had, oh my God, it hurt. And then I flew home the next morning and went straight to surgery. And the first time, I'd never even had an IV in my life prior to that. So it was an eye opener. Yeah. Am I the only guy that has gotten injured, serious injury on sick week?
Well, especially as not being a participant in the event. Like,
oh, dude, it was a scene, man.
We'll call it the worst spectator injury ever. So.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was crazy. Well, hey, Tom, best of luck this winter. Can't wait to see this thing unfold yet again. Hopefully we get to be a part of it. Of course, we'll have a ton of coverage of the event on dragillustrated.com and in Drag Illustrated magazine. We appreciate you, man. Brett, congratulations on all the things that you're doing right now. And I can't wait to see what comes next. I'm assuming you'll be on sick week. Will you do a multitude of these events in 25?
Yeah, I plan on doing a few in 25 or 6 summer possibly, and then race week, and then we'll see how the rest of the year goes. But yeah, we're going to do more than sick week this year.
It's kind of his job now. So yeah. He's
got to ask the boss. Well, hey, thank you guys so much for being a part of this, and we'll see you soon. Okay.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right, buddy. Hey, Antron. So seriously, why don't you and Doug and Lyle, if you guys have any questions for Antron, feel free to dive in. But I am curious, like, what was the scene like at the racetrack? This whole plane crash. I mean, what a weird Sunday. Was it hard to? It felt like everything that could kind of take you out of get you off your game was happening. But it didn't seem to affect you, obviously. But was that a challenge at all? I mean, what, like having that huge delay in the middle of the day?
Well, I want you to think about this story. The first 2 pair of Top Fuel cars go down the track, and then you hear the sirens go off. You know what I mean? And they stopped, and you see the safety for Safari that's in the racetrack. So that's how I'm going to say Safari is. They went off and they're out. And then you say, what the heck happened? They say a plane just crashed in the pits. And it wasn't just in the pits. Like at the end of the grandstand, if you went like another 50 feet past the grandstands, this plane came down and hit like in a trailer and a truck and crashed it, and then landed and then stopped in another RV. And then right past that is the return road, and then it's the racetrack. So that's how close it was going to the racetrack surface. And then I never forget, Justin and I were sitting in the water box about to go. You get what I mean? So they stopped it, made us get out of our cars, and told us to go, and then we could just go back to our pits because we should be able to race today, but we might not be able to race today because, you have something serious like that. It goes under investigation, and you got to wait for it all transpire to do what they do and make sure. And thank God that none of the people they got injured bad, but nobody died from that accident, which was a huge blessing. So after that all happened and transpired, we got called back, and then everything went back in motion again, and we're like the first pair out. You know what I mean? So that was a little doodah right there, man, where you had to get back in your mindset. You had to get back in your comfort zone. You had to get back into your gladiator mode and put the switches all back on and go back. Like you're right there ready to go and then shut off. So that was really, really intense. And then to recalibrate and get set up because then the track got hotter. The temperatures were still cool where you could still run ET, but then you don't want to overpower the racetrack and try to run a 66 or 67. And that's what we were going to try to run. But then we're like, well, we better ease off a little bit. We better take the new tires off, put used tires on. We better do this. So then you're going through all this mind where you just want to make the right call because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and not go down the racetrack. So that was a lot going in there. We just had enough to get the job done. So that set the tone for the day once we got through that. And then we had Sean Langdon. So what do you do?
And like, what a time for and Lyle. And I don't know if it exists, as much, or if you see it as much, Doug. But it does seem like the responsibility that is on the shoulder of drivers at this point in time has never been what it is today. Because I look at it across the board, Antron. I was like blown away by, everybody's cutting pretty good lights these days. Like, it's not 70s and 80s and 90s like it was not too terribly long ago. You used to see guys win championships cutting 60, 70 lights fairly consistently, and that's not enough now. Lyle, I know you're seeing it in door slammer racing. How much does that impact you? Like, is it, I'm sure you love it in some sense, but I know we all love to go in and knowing we got the fastest car and we've got the best, all we got to do is go up there and go green and we're going to the next one. Those days may be gone.
Well, those days are gone, but I'm going to be honest with you. When I first started racing Top Fuel, that's how I made my bread and butter, because I could leave 40s and 50s on the tree when everybody else was 60s, 70s, 80s. And then what it did was you can go out there and race the track where the track can hold a 68. But they would say, hey, man, we can get past this round if we run a 70. You know what I mean? You don't have to – you can race more efficiently. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Where you put yourself on the edge, that edge like anything else. Like you ask Lyle, you could ask him, if you're out there in a vehicle where you're cutting double O's every lap, that double O is going to turn to a double O red one time. Mm-hmm. It's just what happens. If it rolls a little bit more, the trans brake doesn't hold, and it rolls another inch more farther, that 008's a 005 red. You follow what I mean? It's like you play with those type of numbers. So when you live on that edge of tuning a car, saying the track can hold a 68, that means it holds at 68. That means you got to be spot on to run a 68. But if you can ease it off and get through the trouble zone a little bit, you can run a 70 a lot easier. You follow what I mean? And Justin brought that to his team. Like, when other people were running 69s, he could run a 71 and win. And that's how we are too. We're like that too. We've beat a lot of teams by not out racing a racetrack and just out racing them down the racetrack with our total package.
Yeah, right? I feel like there's never been more spotlight on the driver than there is today. There's just so much more money, so much more attention. There's so many cameras everywhere, and everybody's so good, and the technology's so good. I can't imagine what it's like to be in your seat, Antron, especially as a team owner. All these things have to converge, and they're kind of all on your back, right?
Well, the way you said that, Doug, is like the hardest part is for me. I'm starting to get used to it now, but when I started this being a team owner, I had to figure out how to separate all that. That was the hardest part, is to shut all that off and then go to a racetrack where everybody's pulling you every direction, not just doing your normal driver job with the fans, sponsor obligations, but then you have employees asking you questions about.
Got him again.
Someone called him. I know what this is. Hey, can I have this weekend off? Hey,
Right.
My cousin's getting married and I need to go to Tahiti, and I'm going to have to miss a week. All of those things, like,
you had to figure out how to do that.
No, we lost you for a second, like right as you were saying, dealing with employees, but I can't imagine what it's like. And I've seen this hinder a lot of racers over the years. Like, I've had a lot of dear friends that were trying to run a business while also trying to race at a professional level. And I could just see it throughout the weekend clash. It's like jumping off a conference call to go climb in the car, and I just think that's a learned thing that I don't think happens immediately. Maybe it's something you either got or you don't. But I think you can attest to the fact that it's something that you've got to develop over the course of time, being able to shut that shit off.
Yeah, you learn how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
That's the trick. That's the trick. A lot of people don't understand that verbiage. You know what I mean? And that's the way you grow in life. You grow in life by getting yourself out there and doing different things, even though it makes you uncomfortable. And then once you get used to that new comfortable, you don't realize that you have leveled up.
Yeah.
You follow what I mean? And that's one thing that I've been doing throughout the course of these 3 years is just understanding how to deal with that and been growing through it. And now when the chips get down, I can tell you this, when the stress level gets up, the chips get down, I'm one of those types of people that focus gets even better and I get even more comfortable. I don't get scared. I don't get more nervous. The higher the stakes are, the more zoned in I get.
Yep.
And it's the weirdest deal, but that's how I get. And
you have less time to think about it.
Yeah, and the thing about it is you get comfortable of going on your reaction on how you just handle things. Because you know it, Lyle could tell you, is that when you in these race cars, the less you think,
100%.
the better you do.
Yeah.
You think?
Backtrack just a little bit to the importance of the driver. You know, the days of making more horsepower than the guy next to you are over, right? Like back when Scotty Cannon was the king of Pro Mod, I'm not saying he wasn't a good driver because he was a great driver, but in most cases, I would say in the Pro Mod days, he probably made more power to the tune of 100 or hundreds of horsepower, right? Like they just had it figured out. They did different things with the engines. And like when people dominated, it was most of the time, it was just in the infancy of really taking aftermarket parts and putting them together and making a race motor out of it. It was just, you just flat could make more power, and those days are over, right? You go to Proline and you can buy a package. You can buy an engine. You can buy one intake to oil pan. You can buy one with a blower on it. But you can buy a package that I guarantee you in a handful of passes can go to the World Series of Pro Mod and qualify, right? And, like, that's a feat in itself. So then it comes down to us as drivers, right? You know, and, like, in this deal that with Tommy Humans and the LDR car I'm driving, like in Orlando, I drove 3 cars at one event. Drove a Pro Mod, a Pro 275 car, and an LDR car, all at the same race. Now, they were all Pro-charged Hemis, but it's still all different cockpits, right? Like, I fit in every car different. David Reese cut the steering column out of the Pro 275 car on Friday night and raised it up to get it out of my lap, you know, like, and all these things. And just like you talked about, being able to sit down in there and not think about anything but turning the bottom bulb on shallow and ripping loose on time, you know, and now with the especially the list or the roster of drivers coming to the World Series of Pro Mod, we talk often about how you got to have a lucky round. And I don't mean luck up and them blow the tires off or you know, expire a motor or something like that. Them go up there and miss the tree by 100 is all you need. If they're 20 and you're 10 and y'all go out there and run a 68 apiece, you've done it. And that's the luck I'm talking about, you know, is just, you're just a little bit better than Jason Harris or just a little bit better than Spencer Hyde, you know, or like Spencer and I, a really good race last year at the Snowbirds, and he turned it 4 red right after taking 3 out of his box, you know? And so, and that's the kind of things where us as drivers matter, you know. Used to, you could just pile one in there, turn loose, and it really wouldn't affect your qualifying spot much anymore. Right. But like, and you'll experience it. Steve Petty is so adamant about how shallow you stage the car, you know, and in pro stock, especially, it's a big deal. And I know now, as close as Top Fuel is, it makes a big deal for you guys, but you're talking about 3 or 4 inches making the difference in 3 or 4 hundredths, right? Yes. Like, you can stuff one in there deep and almost turn the top bulb out, make a killer run and not qualify.
Yep. That's 500.
You know, and like that shit matters, you know, and it's a lot to think about, you know, and it, just for myself, driving 3 different cars with 3 different sets of brakes on them, right? Like, I don't bump one in with a button. I think, you know, race car drivers stage one with a foot brake. If you just drive a race car, maybe you use a bump button. But I like to stage them with a foot brake because I have full control. I'm not dependent on a box to release and grab the trans brake again and do it the same every time. With my foot, I control it all. But they all do it different, right? You know, and I'm one to go in and turn the top bulb off on and take an extra 4 inches so that I don't have as far to bump, and like all these things in 3 different cars, right? Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot to think about. But like you said, the less you think, the more you're in there driving by feel. You know, I've said it for years. You drive a Pro Mod by the seat of your pants. You know, like, you're in there holding the steering wheel and you kind of guide that thing around, but everything you need to know about what's going on in that race car comes right through the bottom of your legs. You know, I can tell you everything that car's doing, and that's what it takes. If you're going to win down there, if you're going to do well, if you're going to qualify on the pole, staging it shallow, driving with the seat of your pants, you know, understanding who you're running, right? You know, in these Pro Charge cars, you leave them in gear long enough, it gets the converter hot, right? Well, you got to know who's running under, you know, maybe you've watched them, understand how long their process takes from burnout to backup, who's setting the wheelie bars, are they clearing it out, are they purging nitrous, you know, and leaving it neutral. Like, all these things matter. And as a driver, you have to understand all of that and then wrangle a 3,500 horsepower Pro Mod 660 feet at 200 plus miles an hour, right? Like, it's just a lot to think about. And like you said, Doug, I think, and Wes, today the driver is under the spotlight and more important maybe than ever.
Because there's been times in the past, no doubt about it, where there's been some team, and I'm not trying to knock anybody's accomplishments, but there have been times in the past from Top Fuel on down where, like you said about Scotty Cannon, I mean, there were several seasons that U.S. Army Top Fuel dragster, it was just head and shoulders better than every other car on the property. You know, I mean, and it was just, I mean, I'm not trying to discredit Alan Johnson or Tony Schumacher, but it just is what it is. And I think that, I mean, I was just pulling up some stats, and I think in 2023, the average reaction time at World Series was an 0.46. I think this year it was an 0.36. Like, it wasn't that long ago that you could go to an NHRA Pro Mod races and see a whole lot of ones, you know, right behind that decimal point. You know what I mean? Like, it was not at all uncommon to see a 90, 110 fairly regularly, and guys go rounds doing that. The whole thing has escalated to a point that is almost unbelievable. AB, closing notes. I know you've got other interviews to do, so thank you for being so generous with your time this afternoon. Could you just give me, like, you're running Steve Petty calling the shots, teamed up with Manny Bajinga. Manny Bajinga, longtime friend of ours here at Drag Illustrated. Excited to have you be a part of this. Will the week of the race be your first shots in this car?
Yeah, absolutely. The car right now is over there at Monterey getting switched over. It was a turbo car, and it's getting switched over to Pro Charger. So we're putting Pro Chargers on it, and they've been a long-standing partner with us, helping us out ever since I got into the Pro 275 deal. So thanks to Pro Charger for that. And then we're just putting it all together, man. We're going to get out there early. We have plans to test before the race, and I'm waiting to see where our testing plans are. We're going to try to get out there, you know, either before Turkey Day or after Turkey Day, and then be down there for the whole week of testing before the race. So I know Manny, he likes to show up, and we got to come prepared. We just got to get some laps on this car. And I've been testing Brian's Pro Mod car a little bit too, so I've been getting my feet wet over there for a little bit here at Indy. And we'll be down there with that thing too. So got all my staging procedures down. It's just I just want to get comfortable in the machine that I want to race, because you're going to go there, and I know everybody's going to be out there. It's going to be no joke. And I remember seeing how tight that field is. It's going to be crazy. The main thing is to get in and then take it from there and go one round at a time, and so we can see what we can shake out there, man. It's going to be
you can't make some of that big money, brother. Well, hey, Antron, congratulations, man. Seriously, it couldn't happen to a better guy. I've said this to you before, but you're such an incredible ambassador for our sport, and I think it's fantastic. We need guys like you in the winner's circle. We need the camera pointed at Antron Brown as often as we possibly can, man. So congrats, dude, and we'll see you at the racetrack very soon.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, Wes, for having me on. Doug, great talking to you. Lyle, my man. I can't wait to get out there with you.
I think we've just got our first Rivals Night matchup locked in. Baby. I'm putting a fucking press release out tomorrow.
Let's go.
Hey, lock it up, because I got some more talking I got to do.
All right, man. Count on it. You heard it here, folks. Antron, ain't that the magic of this deal, you guys? I mean, where else are you going to see these people racing against each other? It never happens anywhere else, only at the Winter Series. I'm so excited, my God. Anyways, thanks, AB. Appreciate you, brother.
Congratulations, buddy. See you.
Thank you.
Doug, Lyle, it's down to us. We're slowly cutting people off. We're almost down to the end of the show. Doug, why don't we just kind of close this notes up? I mean, we've obviously talked a lot about the Winter Series, but by God, why not? Snowbird Outlaw Nationals coming up in a couple of weeks. Tell us a little bit about Bradenton. I think we can all agree that there's something special happening at Bradenton Motorsports Park across the board. And it's not just our events. I mean, it's all these things that happen down there throughout the year. I don't know if it's that community, if it's that part of the country. I'm sure there's a lot of things that contribute to it, but it does feel like there's some magic in the air when you roll through the gates.
Oh, there's definitely magic. I felt it like when I first experienced Bradenton, I think first time I was down there in 18 maybe, I was like, oh, this place is special. And seeing what Vic has done with the place, and then you getting behind Vic for the Winter Series, and just all of it. When you go down there, it's a small enough place to where it just feels like the Field of Dreams, but a big enough stage and a good enough facility, a great facility, that it actually is it's just a perfect combination. And Snowbirds is the beginning of it. We're proud to be, Motion Raceworks, the main sponsor for that. And I just look forward to seeing all the cars and all the people. And it really is. It's like a community from now till whatever, February, March, whatever, when World Series of Pro Mod's over. And I'm just really excited about the next couple of weeks.
You and me both. Lyle, do you think that, like, because we had some thoughts initially, even Vic and I talked about, like, should this be like a touring thing? Should we go to multiple tracks? And I thought, you know what, maybe never say never, right? But for right now, I just can't imagine going anywhere else. And I think there's some magic to having everybody's shit parked in one place for 3 months. Like, we're going to have our own little club, our own little drag racing ecosystem in Bradenton, Florida for 3 months, right?
Well, I mean, putting all the things aside with how great the facility is and what all, the series you're putting on, there's not really anywhere else around the country that you can go and race caliber of cars in early December, and giving the people from up north where the roads get bad and tons of snow and, the weather gets bad in the Midwest, giving them somewhere to leave their rigs and their race cars where they can fly in and race all winter long, there's something to be said for that. If Doug has moved literally a whole sector of his business down there, Mark Mickey now has a shop and a home there, right? There's tons of people who are essentially kind of relocating a little bit to come down there to ensure that they've got places to stay and, places to work on their cars and somewhere to go down there and race throughout the winter. I've thought about the same thing, like how cool it would be to take the Winter Series and travel around, but for it to stay in the coldest months of the year and give not only us as racers, but the fans somewhere to go vacation where it's typically nice down there. In the daytime, it'll be in the 70s and 80s. Sometimes can get a little cool at night, but there's just nowhere else around the country where you can go race like this. So I think it's found a good home. I hope it's permanent, and the continued growth down there doesn't push the racetrack out or somewhere else. But for now, Wes, I think it's right where it should be. I've already got hotel rooms booked to ensure I've got somewhere to stay while I'm down there. I left my motor home and a little SUV that we keep around the house is down there parked at the Freedom Factory right now. And we are fired the F up to get down there and race all winter long. I've been looking over here over my right shoulder at the 2023 Snowbird Outlaw Nationals $52,000 check with my name wrote on the pay to the order of line. And then the trophies right. Oh, wrong side, right there.
Oh, yeah.
So
Screaming Eagle.
That's the only Outlaw Pro Mod race I've ever won. And arguably probably one of the most sought after. So I'm excited, dude, but I think you're right where you should be. I don't think it should go anywhere else.
I couldn't agree more, man. I think that's for me, it's like getting all your boys together, right? Yeah. Like all of us buddies are going to get together. And I wanted you to know that I've already cleared it with Molly and Doug, and you can just stay with them. They've got,
that happens anyways. Lyle just shows up.
Yeah. I don't know.
Literally, you don't know this, but from now until March, Lyle might just walk through the front door of my house at any given time. And Molly's like, did you know he was coming? I was like, no, I had no idea. How long is it staying? I'm like, I have no idea.
With like a trash bag full of dirty clothes. Like, hey man, can I wash my clothes here and stuff? And they're like, yeah, well, you know where your bedroom is. Just going up there, I guess.
Well, and there are like Manny Bajinga's building a place down there. I know the Deckers have bought a place down there and are going to build a shop. So it's like, there's some, it's happening. It's literally happening. You nailed it, Doug. Like it's, if you build it, they will come, man. Well, hey, I want to tell you guys, thanks a bunch for your support. Thanks for being on here. I've had both you guys for damn near 2 hours. So thank you so much for burning up your afternoon. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks down at the Motion Raceworks Snowbird Outlaw Nationals Race 1 of the Drag Illustrated Winter Series presented by J&A Service. Man, I can't wait, dude. We're about to burn this place to the ground.
Sounds good.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah,
Talk soon, guys. And hey, thank all of you guys for tuning in each and every week. It wouldn't be near as much fun if we didn't do this with all of y'all. So thank you for supporting us. Remember to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything here from the Drag Illustrated team. And I can't wait to see you guys at the racetrack soon. Thanks, guys.